Hey Fulton Schools parents, community members, and future students of the Salmon in the Classroom project. Wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about the cross-curricular approach to Salmon in the Classroom that we have here at Fulton Schools. My name is Jeremy Winsor. I am a current high school teacher. I was the person that got this project rolling about 6 years ago, so I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about what it is and why it's unique to our district. This is the group that started us off in 2011. So approximately 6 years ago, we started Salmon in the Classroom here at Fulton Schools. At that time, we released our salmon below the spillway at Rainbow Lake. Since then, we have transitioned and we have moved to the spillway at Hubbardston. That project has grown exponentially since we started it. This is a picture of our students that released fish in 2013. 2014, 2015, and then 2016. You'll notice there's a number of high school students that are in this picture. What we did this last year is we found a way to get a bunch of high school students involved as mentors to this project. So all of these students have been through the project. They understand how the project operates. And so they served as kind of facilitators for each lab station and helped students move from lab station to lab station based on the completion of the work that needed to be done at each one. So getting into why our project is unique, our project's cross-curricular. So in social studies, at the beginning of the year, they get an introduction into the project, and really the big picture for social studies is talking about the economic impacts of salmon in our state. They do some background information into the project, why it got started, the purpose of it. School participation is part of it as well. They talk about the role of it in the classroom and then costs associated with getting tanks set up and all of the equipment that's involved in that aspect. In the spring, they then move on to talking about the fishing industry and the economic impact that it has in our state. They also talk about the statewide efforts of Salmon in the Classroom, and they also talk about a justification to the project. So they look at should it continue based on a success versus benefit analysis. In language arts, again, they are introduced to the project at the beginning of the year. They do a student-created blog that runs the entire length of the school year. During the winter, they prepare for their argumentative writing piece. They do some stuff with Google Docs. They get prepared for collaborating in writing. And then they also create some graphics, some informative graphics using a number of online tools that then those graphics can be put inside of their argumentative essay or inside their lab reports later on in the year for science and math. And then they're also given an outline for their argumentative piece in the spring, and they're guided through the writing process. Ultimately, that argumentative piece is a justification for our project, and they also have to take a stance using the data that they've collected as to whether the location that we release our salmon is appropriate. In math, in the winter, students do some water quality testing. They do some graphing of that water quality testing. And then they also measure mortality rates of our salmon. Each permit that our teacher holds allows us to get 200 eggs. And so we take that number 200 and we keep track of the number of deaths that we have, the eggs and the fry as they grow. And so we keep track of that overall mortality rate. In the spring, students have to create box and whisker plots. They actually do a little bit of practicing with prior year data prior to going out and releasing our fish. We always do a box and whisker plot of our salmon lengths, and then we send that information into the state. They also do a sediment size scatter plot, and then they put a line of best fit to it. And that sediment size is something that they collect information on during our release day. And then also they do a lab report, and their grade in their lab report is a shared grade between science and math. So this past year, Mr. Sherrick spent some time taking over the instructional aspect of it. In the past, I've done that. In the fall, again, introduction to the project as it's relating to science. We also have to get our tank set up, so we have to prepare it. We have to establish the nitrogen cycle, and we have to do water quality testing. Ultimately, in the fall, really what we're doing is just introducing water quality testing, getting kids familiar with how to do it, so that then while we're doing that water quality testing over the course of the year, they're comfortable with doing that. We measure ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, dissolved oxygen, and temperature. So with ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate, it's extremely important that students understand the nitrogen cycle, and understanding the nitrogen cycle is going to help them diagnose issues that we may have with water quality inside of the tank. We also measure pH. We do a fish dissection in the fall, usually kind of in the fall/winter is when we do our fish dissection. And then at the beginning of the year, we also do a hatchery tour and an egg pickup. So we have to get our eggs. We get them from the Mattawan, the hatchery in Mattawan, Michigan. It's the Wolf Lake State Fish Hatchery. In the winter, we continue with water quality testing. We do some graphs. We get our live streaming webcam up and going. Students start feeding their fish. Usually we don't have to start feeding fish until after Christmas break. Again, we're doing stuff with mortality rates in science, and then that's bridging over into math. In the spring, we do water quality testing and continue to graph it all the way up until the point in which we release our fish. We do a macroinvertebrate identification, so we practice identifying macroinvertebrates. What that does is it gives us some information about the overall water quality. And students get a lot of introduction, and they gain a lot of understanding prior to going and actually looking at the macroinvertebrates that we find inside of the stream where we release our fish. We do a number of release day labs. We obviously are going to release our salmon. We do water quality and some turbidity studies. We have a stream assessment that we do. So we look up and down the stream. We look for habitat. Is the habitat appropriate for the fish that we're releasing? Or is this site maybe not an appropriate site to release our fish? And students eventually in their lab report have to justify a statement as to whether that location is appropriate for those salmon to survive. We do a fish population study. The guys from the DEQ that come out and help us shock the river. And again, macroinvertebrate study, and we look at stream flow rates. And then students also get an opportunity to do some fishing. Ultimately, once all of this is wrapped up, students are responsible for taking the data that they collect and then finalizing a formal lab report. This is some of our previous students with some of their salmon. So in November, when we do our hatchery tour, the students are introduced into hatchery procedures. Here you can see a picture of them listening to how the DNR goes about trapping fish in order to do egg takes. They also talk about the history of the hatchery program in our state and how our state has notoriously gone about raising and then releasing populations of fish. They get an introduction into the egg take process, so how the DNR goes about taking those eggs, how they transport them, and then also how they incubate them. Here you can see a picture of some of our students holding salmon eggs from the hatching trays. This is an image of those hatching trays. And this image is a little bit different. This is actually the area in which the DNR holds walleye and muskie eggs for incubation. They also get an introduction into how our DNR goes about stocking fish, the vehicles that they use to stock those fish. So here you can see one of our students pointing out the fish stock vehicles that the DNR uses. They also do an ecology walk. So they get to see the entire grounds where the salmon are raised. They get quite a bit of information about how this entire facility was developed, kind of an application into hard work here. This entire facility was developed through shovels. During the Great Depression, when nobody had jobs, people were given shovels and a paycheck to dig a hole in the ground. They created the dikes that you see in the background there. and then all that water was impounded, and it was used as a location for rearing fish that would later be stocked into waterways throughout the state. They learn about fish feeding, which ultimately they'll be responsible for doing that over the course of the school year. This is one of the holding ponds for some of the fish that they've taken out of the hatchery. They just release them in the pond, and the kids get an opportunity to feed those fish. Obviously, we pick up our eggs. We bring our eggs back to the school, and then we incubate and hatch those eggs. Usually they'll hatch right about Thanksgiving time, maybe a little bit later. We don't have to start feeding them until about Christmas time due to the fact that they have a yolk sac that they'll absorb between the time that we get off of Thanksgiving break and then get into Christmas break. So it's about a month period there where they'll absorb that yolk sac. So each one of our labs that we perform on our release day, I'm going to go through each one of those. Our first lab station is salmon release. So our students take the fish that we have, we release them into Fish Creek below Hubbardston. We do water quality analysis. We do our macroinvertebrate study, and we've got some guys from the DEQ that have notoriously over the last few years helped us with that project. They are far more familiar with macroinvertebrates than I am, and they do an excellent job of helping these students identify macroinvertebrates and then what information we can learn from the macroinvertebrates that are found in that creek. Producer identification. Ultimately, the start of all ecosystems is the producers that we have. And so students have to identify the producers that would be found throughout that ecosystem, and then they have to identify why they're important. In our lab station, where we identify fish population study, the guys from the DEQ come out a little bit early. They bring a bunch of shocking equipment. They take that equipment and they shock the stream. All the fish that are stunned are then put inside of some holding tanks, and those holding tanks allow our students to go through and identify each fish that is, or each fish species that is inside of the creek. So here you can see that equipment and how that equipment's used. It's basically just a backpack that is used to send an electrical signal into the water. That electrical signal stuns the fish very briefly, and then those fish can be picked up by use of net and stored inside of a holding tank. Here you can see the guys from the DEQ. They're holding one of the fish that we shocked. Another lab station that we do is a Streamflow Study. So students have to identify the rate in which the stream is flowing, and every year that changes. It just strictly depends on the amount of rain that we get within the week before. So every year we get some new information about that, and we've got a really good website that has a lot of this information documented from year to year. And you can go back and look at the weather the year before or the week before, and you can see that the weather is the ultimate indicator to what our stream flow is. They also do a habitat assessment where they have to look at the entire length of the river. They have to identify, is there area for the fish to hide, to seek cover? Is there gravel where they could come back and spawn? And there's a number of other things that we look for as far as that habitat assessment. They are allowed to do some fishing during their free time. Students typically enjoy this. They typically take us up on every ounce of free time they get spending some time fishing. We also do a river cleanup. So students take garbage bags, they walk the length of the river, they find any garbage that is stored in rocks or crevices or in the water. We've had years past where kids have pulled full bicycles out of the creek right below the dam. And we've moved a lot of garbage over the years. We have got a large amount of community assistance in this project. As I previously mentioned, the guys from the DEQ, we've got some biologists and engineers from that organization that come out and help. Mr. Jason Smith, he helps us with this project. He's ultimately the guy that got this whole thing started. He found some other individuals that were excited to help with it, and he's brought them on board. Those other individuals are Bill Keeper. He's helped us with our fish identification. Very knowledgeable man as far as helping our students learn the different species of fish that we find in the creek. Kevin Goodwin has helped us with the macroinvertebrate study in the past. This year we had an individual from the Michigan Sea Grant come out. His name was Dan OKeefe. He's had a lot of information published in the last little bit in newspapers regarding some of the issues with the Lake Michigan salmon fishery. If you're interested in that topic, we've got some information on our school website, our Salmon in the Classroom website, that you could seek out additional information. So this year Dan came out and he helped our students identify the varying species of river red horse suckers. He was like one of the kids. He was just as excited as the kids with the different species of fish that we were finding. We've had a number of volunteers that have helped us with the project as well. This year Dave Buck came out and helped us. Russ Allwood has always helped us with the project. He helps the individuals from the DEQ in the morning. He helps them do the shock and collect the fish that we allow students to identify. Sherry Winsor has been with us from the very beginning of this project. She helps with identification of producers. She's got a knack for identifying the different types of plants that are found in the ecosystem. And she makes it entertaining and fun for these kids. And so they really get into identifying the different species of plants. We have had in the past students that have brought back poison ivy and wanted it to be identified. And yes, they've done that without any type of glove. So usually we identify that one very quickly and then tell them to go wash their hands. David Windsor's helped us the last few years. Here you can see a picture of him behind Mr. Keeper. And he's helped us with fish identification. Last year he did some video collection for us. So he's kind of fulfilled many roles in the project. We've also got a large amount of financial support. Obviously the DNR is going to be part of that in the collection of eggs from the weir up on the Little Manistee River and then transporting them to the hatchery. They also have done a great job of presenting information to our students at that hatchery tour. The Gratiot County Community Foundation, they have granted us right around $7,000 so far for this project. So they have been very gracious to us. Without them, we would not have this project. And then obviously Fulton Schools has come beside us in this project and helped us in growing it. 2015 and 16 achievements. This was our 6th year in the program. We had 3 of 4 of our licensed teachers pick up eggs. So again, each licensed teacher can pick up 200 eggs. This year we ended up picking up 600 eggs. And so you're wondering, well, why didn't we just pick up the extra 200 and have 800? We can only have 200 eggs per tank. And so this year we didn't have the tank space. Maybe in the future we'll be able to find tank space and release a larger number of fish. So this year we ended up releasing a total of 402 fish, which that's a pretty good year. We lost almost 200 eggs or fry over the course of the year. Some of those fish that we released were fish that got a little bit larger and they were very healthy and they just jumped out of the tank. So on occasion we'd find fish that were dried up on the floor of the tank or the floor of the classroom where they were healthy fish. We didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't make it because they decided that they saw a light to jump towards. So here you can just see some pictures of students that are getting ready to release their fish. Here's a bucket of some of the fish we released. I think we took 6 buckets total with fish in them. We also were successful at wearing out a whole bunch of 8th grade students. Finally, I want to talk about the future of our project. Currently, we are in discussion with the DNR regarding the possibility of a pilot program. We're looking at the possibility of raising brown trout or brook trout. And the reason we're looking at those two species is because of the time of year in which those trout reproduce. They typically reproduce in early winter to late fall, that time frame. And then we could get eggs during that time and then release our fish at the end of the school year and then raise them throughout the middle part of the school year, just the same as what we do with the salmon. I put grayling on here as kind of a little bit of a joke. There is a statewide effort currently to try to reintroduce grayling into Michigan waters. Dr. Nancy Auer and her PhD student Casey Huckins, they are right now working with the Ottawa Indian tribe, and they're working on introducing these fish back into a tributary of the Manistee River. So pretty cool effort that they've got going on. Hopefully it's successful. In the past, reintroduction of grayling has not been successful, and they think they've got a plan as to how to get it to be a viable fishery in the future. We're also looking at opportunities to bridge the project into high school. Currently we have a GoFundMe that has been set up. We're at about 3% of the support that we need raised. What we're trying to do is we're trying to purchase a research grade system like you see here. This tank system would allow us to separate our fish and then do some growth studies along with a number of other studies with our salmon as they develop throughout the school year. We also have a grant that has been put into the Gratiot County Community Foundation for a greenhouse. Ultimately, what we'd really like to do is we'd really like to develop an aquaponics system like you see here. In the back, there are 2 tanks. Those tanks would hold our fish. And then this tank right here would be the filtration system. The water would then run out to each one of the grow beds, and we would have plants that were growing inside of the grow beds. And then ultimately what we're really hoping is that the plants that we produce would give us some type of food resource that could then either be sold or consumed by students. We've done a large amount of professional development, and we still intend on doing that. The MSTA conference is something we plan on presenting at this next school year with our project. We are attending an institute on Beaver Island in August of this year, and that's going to be an opportunity for us to identify ways in which we can get students to become field researchers. We've done a large amount of new teacher training down in Matawan at the Wolf Lake State Fish Hatchery. Myself and a number of other teachers have gone down and presented on our project and what our project is. We've given a large amount of resources to teachers that are starting out in this project as well. Currently, I am part of a countywide collaborative that is developing a curriculum for the new Michigan Science Standards. And I'm really excited about the new standards. They have a lot of ways in which we can take this project and we can integrate it into the classroom and link it to the new standards. So these alone are the middle school standards that match the Salmon in the Classroom project. The high school has even more. There's a large number of high school standards that lend themselves well to using this project in creating lasting knowledge in students over the course of the entire school year as they are using the hands-on project that we've created. So I hope this was informative. I hope that you understand a little bit more about our Salmon in the Classroom project, what specifically it is. As always, if you have questions, feel free to contact myself or any of the other teachers that are participating.